and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 423, and today's date is July 23rd, 2014, and the title of this episode is False Flag Warning, U.S. Vulnerable to Cyber Attacks from Terrorists. So what are they doing right now? They're pushing out the propaganda that the Islamic State terrorist group now has the ability to wage war with cyber attacks, that they're coming for us by hitting us with cyber attacks. Now, of course, they demonize Russia already, saying that they have a digital bomb ready to go off in the exchange systems. They also have malware planted inside of these power grid stations, and those can go off at any time. So they're continually using the propaganda that terrorists are coming to get us. Of course, they had to keep giving the announcements from the Islamic State saying that if the United States decides to invade Iraq, that the Islamic State is going to bomb embassies all around the world. And we have to remember the Department of Defense or the Department of Justice sent out packages with explosives to all different embassies around the globe. So you have to remember the Islamic State has been created by the CIA, by Mossad, by the UK, and other Arab nations. And they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. This is part of the plan to push and create a new terrorist group, and this is exactly what they're doing. At the same exact time, they're demonizing Russia, creating a new enemy that will eventually the U.S. will end up fighting. And they're doing this and pushing the agenda as hard as they possibly can. Now, they use this Malaysian airliner to continually push the notion that Russia was completely behind it. And what we're seeing right now is that everything that they put out there, the videos, the recordings, have all been debunked. And they're showing that the United States has absolutely no evidence whatsoever. They have nothing to back up their claims. They're just pushing the agenda that Russia did it. Now, all of a sudden, Russia came out with their evidence about a plane flying behind the Malaysian airline and other evidence that came out. Of course, the United States came out with their evidence with a 2010 map with color drawings on it saying this is what happened, which is really not evidence. And we can see right now they've backed off their story saying, you know what, there's nothing in here that says Russia was part of, but they made everyone believe that, yes, we know for complete confidence that Russia was behind it. Now they're backing off it because there was nothing there. They're just using lip service to try to convince everyone that Russia is the new enemy. Now they're saying, no, maybe Russia didn't have anything to do with this. Maybe it was just the pro-Russian people. Yeah, they're the ones who did it. Yeah, and we're going to show you how they did it. Well, guess what? They still have no evidence. They don't know what to do because the real evidence is starting to emerge. Their flimsy case is starting to fall apart, and they don't know what to do. It's the same thing that happened during 2013 in August with the Syrian false flag, with their chemical attack. They didn't have any type of evidence back then. They just waved around pictures of people that got hit with sarin gas, and that was pretty much it. They had nothing else to go on. Right now, it's even worse. They have absolutely nothing, and they're just using lip service. I mean, they're just saying, yeah, look on social media, YouTube, Twitter. That's the proof that we're going with. And you can see right now it is completely falling apart. So they have to start building up the case and the propaganda that terrorists are coming to get us. And they've been doing this for quite a while. You have to remember the Islamic State has been created by the CIA, Mossad, England, and other Arab nations. They were put into place because the battle for Syria did not go well, so they needed a newly funded, well-trained group to take up the slack and to create chaos in Iraq. And they saw an opportunity, and they took it. They had the Islamic State come down from Jordan and Syria, where they were being trained and shipped into, take over Iraq. It was completely planned. We saw the soldiers dropping their weapons. They got a phone call before, and we can see that they really went ahead with this plan, and now they're causing complete chaos in the region, and they want this chaos to continually move forward. They want Iraqis to feel the pressure. Iraq's ambassador has already called in and said, listen, if you're not going to help us with any type of airstrikes, we're going to go to another nation to help us out. And we can see right now the United States central bankers are just sitting back, watching the whole situation, and they're waiting for the right moment. This has all been planned, it's all been scripted, and they're just waiting for the right moment to create this major event. All right, let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, what we're seeing right now is Argentina is pretty much going to default right now. And what's very interesting, a judge demanded that the holdouts and the Argentine government would all come together and work out the debt conflict and try to resolve it. Well, the day of the meeting, guess what? Neither side showed up. Argentine debt conflict, people who are supposed to arrive in the meeting didn't show up. The other sides didn't show up. Nobody showed up. But we have to remember, China now is pumping in billions of dollars, loaning Argentina billions of dollars, and I'm wondering if they really don't care to show up at this point because they're getting funds, they're making deals with China, and they're going in a complete and total opposite direction at this time. And it looks like Argentina is looking to join the BRIC nations, and that is progressing. Now, yesterday I talked about the Eurozone, how it is completely falling apart, debt is rising, and today we see consumer confidence in the Eurozone deteriorating much more than expected in July. 18 countries using the euro saw consumer confidence falling to negative 8.4 in July from a revised 7.5 in June, showing the worst reading since April. So it is just getting much worse in the European nations. People are starting to realize they are headed into a depression. Unemployment continually rises. It's not going down. And here in the States, we're seeing the same thing. But you have to remember, we have a little bit more of an advantage. We have a printing press here that's continually creating money. They're manipulating calculations. They're pumping up the stock market. They're making everything look really good to the people that aren't really paying attention. But if you are paying attention, you can see that the actual economic indicators, separate and apart from the unemployment, inflation numbers they're handing out, GDP numbers they're handing out, the gold suppression, and the stock market rise, you can see that retail has really taken a huge hit. Stores are closing. They're laying off people. Dick's Sporting Goods now is laying off about another 400 people from their golf division. And what we're seeing here is more and more stores coming out, closing locations, laying off people. We're seeing other companies come out saying, you know what, we need to start the layoff process. And as we move into August, September, October, we're going to see a lot of major corporations start to lay off. This is a huge time. Usually corporations lay off, do large layoffs in the fall and in the early spring, and they really clean house. Of course, it's restructuring, it's cutting expenses, and they use all these excuses. The real reason they do it is because revenue is falling, it's dropping, and right now the National Retailer Federation has already cut sales estimates for 2014. They were forecasting about a 4.1% in the beginning of the year. Now they're down to 3.6%. And I'm going to tell you, that's going to drop even further. Of course, they're saying, yes, we're going to see an acceleration to the second half of the year. Yeah, we might see a bump up. We have the Christmas holiday, but it's not going to bump the way they think it's going to bump. It's actually going to fall apart. I said this back in 2013 with real estate, that when we come into 2014, things are going to start to fall apart. When we come into the early spring, we might see a bump up, but now we're seeing real estate really start to decline. Prices are now falling. Mortgage applications are declining. Refinancing is declining, and it's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. I've been looking around the country, and I see houses on the market for much longer than they normally would be. I see them going into 90, 120 days, and I'm seeing prices actually starting to come down now. But don't worry, our government is looking at the situation and saying, we need to bring in more revenue. States need more revenue, and they're looking to bring back the internet sales tax. And right now it was shelved. It didn't pass, and no one wanted to look at it. But now the people who support the bill believe this is the perfect time. We don't have enough revenue coming in, debt's skyrocketing, and now is the time to tax people on the internet. And of course, the bill is called the Permanent Internet Tax Freedom Act. Well, this is the most ridiculous name. The Permanent Internet Tax Freedom Act. There's nothing free about this. This is a penalty on those people who use the Internet. They're going to be taxed. And they're trying to get this through right now. They want everyone to be taxed. They want to bring in the revenue. And they're trying once again. Will it pass? We don't know. But at this time right now, the bill has faced virtually no opposition. But again, this could change, but it looks like they're moving forward with this. Now, the IMF is out there, and they are cutting the forecast for U.S. GDP. Anyone surprised about this? Absolutely not, because we see already that financial institutions who said it was going to be between 3 and 4% GDP started to lower their expectations down to 2%. Well, it looks like the IMF is doing the same thing. They're going from 2% now down to 1.7%. They started at 3%. So now we're down to 1.7%. It's continually falling. And we have to look at the second quarter here. We're seeing a lot of the companies come in. Revenues are down. Sales are down. Retail stores are closing. Retail stores are laying off. Corporations are laying off. They're reporting sales are down. Revenue is down. So where are we going with this? It looks like the second quarter is going to be a complete disaster. But don't worry, most likely they'll try to manipulate, massage those numbers, get them where they need to get them, and then revise later. This is exactly what they do. I mean, I talked about this, I think it was on Saturday. The world GDP is completely declining, and what are we seeing now? The Baltic Dry Index collapses to 18-month low. This is the worst since July of 1986. And the Baltic Dry Index is pretty much an indicator of raw material, and it shows you what the economy and where it is headed. And right now, if you look at the graph, it is a trend heading downward. And we can see right now that it is getting worse as time goes on. It's not improving, and this is a really good indicator showing us that we are definitely heading toward a collapse. Okay, now out to the borders here in Texas, we had Senator Reid, who was saying that, no, our borders are secure, there's nothing to worry about. And you have to remember, Harry Reid, he lives in the Ritz-Carlton in Washington, D.C. He's surrounded by people. He's living in a bubble, not really looking out to see what's really going on. He's just living in his bubble, living his life, pretending that everything's okay, trying to convince the American people that he's right. And what we're seeing right now is that he's totally wrong. He has no idea what he's talking about. And what's happening is Senator Cruz has said to Harry Reid, "You really think the borders are secure in Texas? Well, why don't you take a trip with me down to the borders of Texas, and let's take a look at how secure the borders are. And we can stand there and watch the illegals come across it with ease. And then you might have a change of mind. But of course, Reid doesn't want to leave his bubble. He's nervous and afraid, and he already knows what's going on. They're all part of it. This is part of the agenda. And they just really don't care. Now, it looks like another congressman went down to the border in Texas near Mexico, and he has a chilling story that when he was down there, there was high-caliber gunfire, and pretty much it looks like it scattered the U.S. Border Patrol agents, and about 40 illegal immigrants emerged from the weeds of the Rio Grande River and came across the border. And this is Representative Louis Gohmert, a Republican from Texas, says he was worried about what else may have come into the country as those border agents were occupied taking in and processing the illegal aliens from Central America. The Department of Homeland Security didn't want an issue made of this at all. And if I were not there on the ground in the area where this happened Friday night, you probably would have never heard of it whatsoever. The Obama administration has said the numbers of illegal crossings have begun slowing, and there's less coming across. But the senator says, well, the reason for the slowdown is because the governor of Texas called in the National Guard, the militias down there, and they're doing everything they possibly can to keep the illegals out of the country. This is why it's slowing down. It has nothing to do with, the call that Obama made, the announcement in the United States, don't come to America. No, they have advertisements going on in Central America telling them to come here. You have the United States government permission to come up here. We will house you, we will bathe you, we will give you a job, we'll put you on Obamacare, and everything will be all right. And what is happening right now is that militias are forming in this area. We have National Guard, border, and other government agencies in Texas coming down and patrolling the borders, trying to keep the illegals out, and it is very, very difficult. Now, New York is taking a different stance. They have created a 500,000 ID card system to hand out to about 500,000 illegal immigrants. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio signed into law a measure that creates a municipal identification card that can now be used by illegal immigrants to access government services, rent an apartment, and open a bank account. This is exactly what they wanted. The new ID card gives the city estimated 500,000 illegal immigrants the opportunity to open bank accounts and do everything I just pretty much says, and allows them to take advantages of the government services like Obamacare. And we can see right now this has been their agenda from the beginning. Get these illegals in here, have them go on to Obamacare. The government will pay because they're getting the subsidies because they don't have enough money to pay for Obamacare. That's fantastic. Bring up the rest of the family, give them work permits, and have them get into jobs to bring the unemployment numbers down. Have them come up here and spread them across the country into all different areas. Blur the borders with Central America and Mexico, making it look like it's just one big North American type of union here. And they've been doing this completely on purpose. They want more of them coming across. And right now, what is happening with Obamacare is, and I mentioned this yesterday, that the U.S. Court of Appeals, D.C. Circuit, determined that only those enrolled in state-operated Obamacare exchanges are eligible for tax subsidies. Then there was another ruling that said the actual opposite. But if we look at this, what we're seeing is that only 14 states right now have exchanges. All the others do not. So I broke down where all these illegal immigrants are coming in, and it's very interesting that out of the 23 states where these illegals are going to, 14 of them do not have state exchanges, and the other 8 do have state exchanges. Now, if the first ruling holds and these illegals cannot get subsidies, those 14 states, those people will not be put on Obamacare. They will lose out on the thousands upon thousands of people that they want on there. Now, if it's the opposite way, then those states that do have exchanges will not get subsidies. So it's going to hurt Obamacare either way they go here. But don't worry, Obama says, well, I'm not going to stop the subsidies. Everyone's going to still get them. Why? Because I have a pen and I have a paper. So it really doesn't matter. And these are some of the states that these illegals are going into: Vermont, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, Maryland, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Michigan, and it's also New York. Did I mention New York? New York is also one of the, it was one of the first ones, New York. So we can see that all of these states now are receiving illegals. I do have a map on the X22Report.com. It's kept up to date. It's dynamic, and you can go there. It's under Resources, Map of Immigrants, if you want to take a look. Now, Obama bypassed Congress, and it will allow immigrants who have helped terrorists. They created and this was back in February 5th of 2014. They have this law which is under Section 212D3BI of the Immigration and Nationality Act. And what this is saying is that those people who are coming over, who are illegals and they have limited terrorist contact and they are not there really to harm the U.S., they can come into the country. So if they're deemed a terrorist and it's just in a limited amount and they're not really using their terrorist activities on the U.S., they are okay to come into the country. The Obama administration has issued new exemptions to a law that bars certain asylum seekers and refugees who provided limited material support to terrorists who are believed to pose no threat from the U.S. The Department of Homeland Security and the State Department published the new exemptions Wednesday in the Federal Register to narrow a ban in the Immigration and Nationality Act, excluding refugees and asylum seekers who had provided limited material support to, no matter how minor, to terrorists. But if we really look back and they're trying to really stop terrorism, the false flag event in Boston, the brothers who allegedly committed this, I think this was complete setup. They were part of the FBI. They thought they were doing something else, and this was all completely a setup to direct it towards them because they had no one else, and the plan went completely haywire, and they needed people to take the rap for this. So what we're seeing right now, they're letting in more of these people who committed the Boston marathon bombing. So they're really not trying to stop terrorism whatsoever because they realize that these people have nothing to do with terrorism. They aren't the ones who are causing the terrorism. It's really the FBI, the CIA, the government officials who create the terrorist acts. They're the ones who set it up, who orchestrate it, who plan it out, who script it, to put us into fear, to create more laws, to take our rights away. And you can see that even in the airports, the TSA is allowing illegals to get on planes as long as they have a paper that says, I have a court date to meet with an immigration judge. But the rest of the Americans who are citizens, who pay taxes, who've lived their entire lives, their grandparents, they're strip searched, patted down, x-rayed, and everything else because they want everyone to realize that you have no rights and to keep you in fear that there are terrorists running around. Now, we can see that the NSA, the U.S. government, loves to spy on the American people because they are very nervous and scared of the American people. And right now it's come out that, yes, Apple has backdoors built in. About 600 million iPhones and iPads have backdoors built in. And this is coming out from a security expert, Jonathan Zadzarski, who presented an academic paper on the subject at a hacker conference in New York. Apple has issued a statement in response to the allegations saying that the company's diagnostic functions do not compromise user privacy and security. But he said, and he responded to this, by that these services dish out data regardless of whether the user has agreed to diagnostics. So there is no way to disable these mechanisms. So right now, pretty much every iPhone has backdoors. And we see this in Microsoft. We see this in Dell computers, HP computers. These were all created and they all have backdoors. Google's in line, Yahoo's in line. All of these companies allowed the NSA to create backdoors so they could spy on the American people. Now, we can see that the private Western central bank countries are definitely preparing for war. Japan has built their first warships since World War II. They're changing the constitution so they're no longer a pacifist nation. They're moving a U.S. base to a different location to bring more sophisticated weapons in. And now Japan will soon begin construction of 2 more Aegis anti-missile ships in response to North Korea's recent missile tests. The plan is to begin construction of the first warships in 2015 and to start building the second one in 2016, and they're looking to have a fleet of these warships by 2020. So they are really pushing the agenda to have more warships. because they know what is coming. They realize this is going to break out into a full-out World War III scenario, and each country is preparing and getting ready. The United States central bankers have been doing this for quite a while. Now NATO is on board, and you can see that all of these countries realize the system is dying and there's no way out of this except to create an event and have World War III started. Now, the Air Force is launching a GSS-AP satellite. This satellite will spy on other satellites. The Air Force is about to put a new advanced satellite into space to spy on other countries' satellites. On Wednesday, the Delta IV rocket will launch from Cape Canaveral and place 2 geosynchronous space situational awareness program satellites into orbit. They will be the first GSS-AP satellites ever launched. And what does this help them do? Well, it gives them the ability to look at literal images of objects in geosynchronous orbit. A picture is worth 1,000 inferences, because we can see literally what that foreign satellite looks like. And they'll know, and they'll start pretty much cataloging each one of these satellites, so they'll know which ones to strike and hit down during war, so the other country doesn't have the ability to have early warning to spy on other areas. And I can only see this is the only reason why you would launch this, because they are really getting ready for this war to go hot. And we can just see by everything they do, and I'm not talking about their lip service, I'm talking about actions. Every time they do something, it's another action towards war. Now, Russia and China, they're looking to get together, and they're interested in strengthening the stability of Europe. They want to work with Europe. They want to bring them into the fold and help them out here. And we can see they're trying to make deals instead of war right now. And NATO and other European nations are building up military assets. China and Russia are trying to say, listen, we like to work with you. And who knows, maybe Germany will actually switch sides. We don't know at this point. Now, Russia is out there, and Russia's looking at the situation, and they're seeing that, yeah, these military asset buildups all around us is quite a scary thing. It looks like NATO, the United States, are becoming very aggressive and looking to push us into war. So Russia has begun expanding and modernizing its Black Sea fleet in Crimea with new ships and submarines just months after the peninsula rejoined the Russian Federation. We have started forming a powerful Black Sea fleet with an absolutely different level of air service, coastal missiles, and artillery troops and marines. Putin said NATO military buildup near Russia's borders is not just for defense, as the Western alliance claims, but it's for an offensive weapon and an element of the U.S. offensive system deployed outside the mainland. Russia sees the Western military alliance moves as a sign of aggression amid the crisis in Ukraine. And this is exactly what they've been doing. They're bringing in more military assets, even to the non-NATO states there. They're bringing the military assets in, beefing it up. They are already surrounding China. They're already in the Middle East. They're in Central Africa. So pretty much they are getting and positioning themselves all around the world for World War III. Now, as we know, in Ukraine, they have not been receiving gas from Russia. They didn't pay their bill, so their gas was cut off. So it looks like they're trying to do some type of reverse gas supplies from Europe. And right now, Ukraine is blaming Russia, saying that the volume of reverse gas deliveries to Ukraine from the European Union has decreased, and Kiev authorities suspect Russia gas giant Gazprom is somehow involved. Now, they're taking the gas that Russia is supplying to Europe. Europe is then taking that gas and sending it back to Ukraine. And I wouldn't be surprised if Russia is saying, you know, this is highly illegal. They said this once before, and they might be tampering and saying, you know, you're not allowed to do this. You can't sell the gas, and you can't use the pipeline, so we're slowing it down, and we're cutting off Ukraine. And again, this is all part of the whole entire agenda to bring us to war, because the United States, the central bankers, Ukraine, wanted to get off of Russian gas supply. They want Europe to get off the Russian gas supply. U.S. is saying, no, no, we can support you. We can bring the natural gas that you need into the area. And Europe's saying, that's absolutely no way that this can happen. Why? From your fracking in the United States, there's no way you can bring this. You don't have the ability, you don't have the ships, and we cannot be without this gas, or the people will freeze during the winter months. So Ukraine is out there, and they're looking at the situation. And of course, Yatsenyuk, who has been put into place by the U.S. government central bankers, has said that they're going to impose sanctions against Russians who, in Kiev's opinion, directly or indirectly support separatists and terrorists. So a committee has been created to impose sanctions against the Russian Federation. So now Ukraine is placing sanctions on Russia. I mean, seriously, this is really getting to be ridiculous in what they're doing here. They're doing everything they can to continually push and push, provoke, and everything that they've done is not working, and they're getting anxious right now of how they're going to start this war. And again, like I said before, if they cannot provoke a country into doing it, they will take the event home here to the United States. Now, Russia has delivered all its evidence right now about the Boeing crash to the EU. They handed it over, all the information that they came out with, showing that it wasn't Russia or the Russian people in the southeastern region who did it. Their evidence points to Ukraine, and so far the EU has shown no reaction, that they received the information yet, and they're showing that nothing has been done with it. And we have to remember, the Americans are continually using the propaganda that, yes, it was the pro-Russian people, maybe not so much Russia anymore, and they're still using the lip service that they know who did it. They just don't want to produce the evidence. And the reason why they're doing this is because they really don't have the evidence. Now, an inside source has come out and said that the Ukraine Security Service might have handed over recordings of conversations between air traffic control and Malaysia Airlines flight to the U.S. to analyze them ahead of time to make sure there's nothing on there that will implicate Ukraine or the United States. And again, this is coming from a source inside saying that this might have happened, and if it has happened, they might then try to change the recordings before it's handed over, because right now Ukraine has these recordings someplace, and we have to remember that they're the ones who are in control of the control towers, the air traffic controllers. They're the ones who are saying maneuver the plane into this region, keep it at this certain altitude, and right now, this is what the sources are out there saying, and we'll have to see what comes about this, because right now they do not have the voice recordings. They only have the black boxes that the pro-Russian people have handed over. And the voice recordings, I do believe, is going to pretty much tell the entire story here. Now, the president was out there saying that he's going to be sending military advisors to Ukraine within weeks. The United States is reportedly preparing to send a team of military advisors into Ukraine to assist with revamping forces there in the midst of the ongoing crisis between government-loyal troops and an anti-Kiev militia. Now, what I'm thinking is things might be falling apart there. There might be the Ukrainian people, the paid mercenaries. The people don't want to fight. They have a draft system going on. People don't want to go in and fight against the pro-Russian people in the southeastern section. And it seems like things might be in a little bit of a turmoil type of situation where people are having a problem there. And of course, we understand that the FBI is on the ground, CIA is on the ground, the NTSB's on the ground, NATO's on the ground. They have pretty much everyone on the ground, and now Obama has to send more people into this area to keep control of the situation. Now, Anonymous is out there, and they're saying that they're going to be cyber-attacking Israel. The Anonymous hacker group urged hackers to renew attacks on Israel-based internet resources on Friday, and in Ghost Team message, we will take down all Israel websites, and Hamas must do their job. Now, I don't know if this is propaganda coming out right now. They've said this before. They hit a couple sites. I know on Netanyahu's, I think it was wiki page. They replaced it with a Hamas or Palestinian type of flag, and this might be the first step. And it's not really a hack. I mean, pretty much anyone who knows anything could do that. But what we're seeing here is that more and more propaganda is coming out in this area. I see it looks like they're trying to set up some type of ceasefire. But again, we saw this in Ukraine. One side wants someone to put down all their weapons. It's an ultimatum, and we'll have to see what occurs with this ceasefire and truce that's supposedly coming up in the UN, and we'll see if this actually goes forward with Israel and Gaza and what has been going on there. Now, out in Iraq and in Syria, what we're seeing is that the Islamic State has captured a huge amount of U.S. combat platforms and equipment deployed in military bases in northern Iraq. The Islamic State has captured about 1,500 Humvee combat vehicles, and they're also saying that they have PKC machine guns. The military also says it's about 4,000 of these machine guns, and they have about and they're stealing more and more of this type of equipment. Now, the question is, are they actually really stealing it, or was this part of the plan for the Islamic State to go in there and take over all of the U.S. military assets? Because again, they couldn't supply them with all of this, so they needed to go in and make it easy for them to take over all the weapons. Because at the beginning, when this all happened, these Iraqi armed forces got a call. They were told to leave their stations and leave the weapons. And I think this is how they're allowing the Islamic State to arm themselves and to ship weaponry back to the Islamic State that's in Syria to keep the battle going. Because you have to remember, they can just do so much through Congress. I think they needed a covert way of arming the Islamic State and making them very powerful. Now again, the Iraqi ambassador is out there, and he is calling on the U.S. to come in and hit the Islamic State. Now, the U.S. is not doing anything. And even in the case where reports are coming out that the Islamic State militants are stealing oil, now they have a lot of the oil fields in Syria. They're taking the oil from Syria, smuggling it into northern Iraq, and then selling the oil. Now, we have to think back with the Libyan situation. The tribes in Libya took a ship, put oil on the ship, and was looking for a buyer. In no time flat, SEAL teams boarded the ship and returned the ship to port. Again, they were going to sell it not using the dollar. And it wasn't part of the private Western Central Banker plan. The Islamic State is really doing the same thing. They're stealing the oil from the Syrian oil fields, smuggling into Iraq, and selling it. The only difference is that the Islamic State is part of the private Western Central Bank system. They're selling it using the U.S. dollar, and they're using the oil in Syria to make more sales. So you can see they're not concerned about this, because if it was an actual terrorist group, they would have been in there in no time flat, just like in Libya. We would have seen forces moving in, but this is part of their plan. They've captured a lot of oil fields in Syria right now. They're siphoning off the oil, selling the oil, and this is part of the plan, and they're pushing this plan forward. Now, there was a report from the commission who created the 9/11 document, and they are saying right now that the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda affiliate groups have the ability to use cyber attacks to attack the United States. The study warns against terrorism, new and dangerous phase, pointing out the perils of cyber attacks. Al-Qaeda affiliated groups are now active in more countries than before 9/11. The report says, and those organizations are increasingly turning to cyber terror. They have the ability to hit the power infrastructure. They have the ability to hit the financial institutions. They are playing this propaganda up. They want you to completely believe that this terrorist organization has the ability to hit America and bring it down. And of course we know this is a complete inside job. We know they're doing it because the economic collapse is coming. We understand the Fed is going to exit the stimulus market come October. We realize if we go back to 1929 to 1987 to 2008, a lot of the stock market crashes happen in October. There's a billionaire out there saying, yes, enjoy your Indian summer, because when the fall comes, it looks like we're going to have a major stock market crash. So we can see right now they are definitely getting prepared. They're getting ready with the propaganda. They're moving this agenda forward. And we have to remember, the president has been implementing, along with the FCC, a special switch where he'll be able to talk to everyone on the radio, on the TV, all at once to let you know what type of terrorism is taking place or act of war which is taking place. And we realize that eventually what's going to happen is this is most likely going to happen in stages where they're going to hit the financial institutions. He'll come on the air saying our financial institutions have been hit. And we have to remember Jack Lew did give us some information that if the financial institutions are hit, it could bring the economy to its knees. And he could come on, the president I should say, could come on air saying, yes, our financial institutions were hit by cyber attacks either from Russia or the Islamic State, and right now we need to close the banks. We need to look at the situation. We've implemented and engaged the kill switches on the exchanges, and right now everything is holding steady. We've seen a market crash, whatever it is, 6,000 points or whatever, or 7,000 points, but we stopped it at this time and we shut everything down. And the economy right now, we're working it out with the Fed and what they want to do about the situation, and they're looking to help out with some type of stimulus. We're looking at the banks, and we see that the banks need cash. So what we need to do right now, and we all need America to help out here, we need to go, and what we're going to do is we're going to replace your money with bank stock, because we need your money in the banks temporarily to fix the financial institutions. We're only going to take 10% this time, but we're going to have to put capital controls so these cyber attackers don't have the ability to siphon off more money. I mean, this is the craziness that's going to come out of the government. It's going to make it look like they're really helping. Now, we know it's them out in the other country, and what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come up with some type of plan of getting back at these people who did this to our economy. A couple of days will pass on, and all of a sudden we'll have some type of dirty nuke or chemical weapon attack in multiple cities. He'll come on the air again, and he'll say, okay, they destroyed our economic, and while we're sitting here hemming and hawing about what we're going to do, we were just hit with chemical and dirty nukes in different cities. It could be biological too. And now we really need to understand what's going on here. And eventually what will happen, Congress will go, they'll declare war on the terrorists, and then all of a sudden we'll have cities being powered down from Russia. And then those people who could watch TV and radio and everything else, he'll come on again saying that, yes, it was Russia who turned off the power. They saw an opportunity, and they're coming for America. And we can see how all of this could be turned around to make it look like all these other groups are coming to get the United States. And we all know this is all an inside job. It's a false flag event to cover up this economic collapse and to bring us into war. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.